Movies on video cassette.
Welcome to Strange Glow Video.
Guys, I'm eating junk and watching rubbish.
We're oozing with VHS, horror, nostalgia, and more.
You better block the glow in the dark.
After it comes to videotape, you can get a glow-in-the-dark hand puppet from the movie Casper.
And now, your hosts, Alec, Justin, and Nick.
Hey, you're not allowed to rent here anymore.
Yeah! Hey everybody, welcome back to Strange Glow Video. My name is Justin. With me, as always, is my esteemed colleague, co-host extraordinaire, Alec. How you doing?
Good. And I was just realizing this kind of where your little intro there, your dialogue comes from is partially Wayne's World and partially Ace Ventura.
Mm-hmm. Yes. These are things we watched all the time, and they just become part of your life.
With me, as always, is Garth.
Yeah.
But you say my esteemed colleague, Dan Marino.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. You know what's up. You got it. You know where I'm coming from. So tonight we're going to talk the 4:30 movie by Kevin Smith.
Kevin Smith, the guy that cries all the time. Just kidding.
Yeah.
I don't, you know. That doesn't bother me at all.
No, I mean, the dude's in touch with his life experiences. So, man, I'm more power to him, right?
A lot of people, yeah. I posted a review of this on my channel, and it's a short review, like 5 or 6 minutes. I don't know. And I got a lot of comments, people talking about like, oh yeah, it's not that Kevin Smith cries. It's that like, he's a shill for Disney and you're like, all right, weirdo.
A shill for Disney because on his podcast, he talks about Marvel shit that he likes.
Yeah, because he grew up on Marvel. Like I can understand liking even the bad movies. None of them are like so bad that they're
Unwatch. Well,
there's a few that I'm not rewatching, but you know,
I would say 90% of the Marvel Cinematic Universe is rewatchable. There's some stuff that you may not want to watch it, or you may watch it once a decade when you're just going through the full catalog. Okay.
Well, I feel like a person who's saying something like that too doesn't read comics, and I don't read comics all the time or anything. I read them once in a while, but Kevin Smith is definitely a comic book reader and has been his whole life. So it stands to reason that he'd be excited for all those types of movies
and a comic book writer. I mean, he's written for several comic series over the years. So why is anyone surprised by that?
Yeah.
Like, what do you think he's done when he has been doing movies? Like between movies and things like that, he's done all kinds of stuff. So,
yep. So this is his first movie in a little while. He bought this movie theater a few years ago. It's the one that he went to growing up, and he was like, "I would like to shoot a movie here." And then he started talking immediately about like the plot and stuff, as he always does. He kind of is like, "This is what the movie's going to be about," and then he goes off and writes it and got this made during the writer's strike last year, which is interesting. It was under the certain budget amount. I can't remember what the number was, but if it was under a certain budget and it was done indie production, they could request approval, and they did get approval. So
okay, yeah, that makes sense, right? I mean, then it wasn't like in the traditional LA sense. This is all shot on site in Jersey at his theater in his hometown, basically. So,
yep, and with his daughter's boyfriend as the lead,
Austin Azur, is that his last name?
I don't know how to pronounce it. Zager is how I'm going to say it.
Oh, Zager. Okay, yeah, that's it. For some reason, I was thinking the A came before the Z, but don't mind me.
Yeah, but he actually surprised me. Did a great job in this. I was thinking it could go either way, but this character is very, very earnest and likable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then obviously, if you know anything about Kevin Smith and you see this movie, this is the Kevin Smith character, right?
Yeah.
So very fascinating. He's playing the version of Kevin. Obviously the names have changed to protect the innocent or the guilty, whatever the hell, however you want to put that. But that's the same concept there. But yeah, loosely inspired by his growing up with the cinema, and the trailers for this threw me off a little bit. And the only thing I expected was that they're going to be going to the movies and movie hopping, right? I didn't know much else about the plot. And to me, that sounded fun anyway, because growing up, we would go movie skipping. The first person I ever went movie hopping with was my aunt and uncle. They'd take us to the movie and we'd see, I think one day we saw 4 movies. We were there basically all day. So,
if there's good movies to see, I'd be down for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So
and I had done that a few times myself, or like even when there was nothing left to see, we would be walking and shit. I remember seeing, I think, Undercover Brother one time at the movies, like just after something else, just because it was like, all right, let's go fucking go walk into this, sure.
Well, and even the movie hopping, just like sneaking into the R-rated movies, that was pretty cool too. There's always the workarounds for that.
This is,
Depending on the size of the theater and everything, that was so much fun to see.
I think this is the first time I publicly admit this, but I did go and see Ghostbusters 2016. I think this is the last time I movie hopped in 2016. I need to do it again sometime.
Okay, there you go.
2016 though, I went to Ghostbusters 2016, and then I went to see the Fantastic Beasts movie.
Okay, pretty solid little selection there.
Fantastic Beasts was all right. Nothing
It wasn't
great, but
wasn't
even for
amazing.
not paying for it, sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, you go to the movies for the entertainment, not necessarily the amazement. Sometimes bad movies are entertaining. Sometimes mediocre movies are entertaining for all the wrong reasons. But hey, yeah. So, what were your expectations after seeing the trailer for this?
So I actually had pretty decent expectations before the trailer, and then when I saw the trailer, they kind of went down a little bit. I don't particularly remember why, because I can't remember the trailer now. I only viewed it like once or twice when it first came out, and then I just kind of dumped expectations and was like, I didn't hear much about a Kevin Smith doing a tour. I think he already did that, didn't he?
I
Did he
think
do
everything. No, he hasn't done a tour for this. I think everything he did was at the Smod Castle over the weekend, like opening weekend. I saw a bunch of social media there where it looks like he was. I don't know if he's doing live sessions before the showings at a bunch of them there.
I'm sure he is. He's doing Q&As. There's no way that guy's not talking about this movie.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, I went to the Clerks 3 tour here, and that was 2 years ago, right? And that was kind of an ongoing tour because that movie didn't get a wide release necessarily either.
Right.
So, out of all the movie theaters in town, there's only the one theater playing this one. We went Thursday night, opening night, and they only had 4 times that night. A couple of options. So,
Yeah.
very limited release, but I'm okay with that, right? It doesn't necessarily need the wide release. Kevin's stuff typically does well on video on demand and home views and all that stuff. And
Well, that's the thing. This is the widest release he's had in, I don't know.
was Red State this big of a release or similar scale?
I don't know. I'm pretty sure he's been doing the smaller indie releases since Red State, but I'm not 100% on that. I wasn't following him too much during that era, during it anyway. But Red State and Tusk, I don't know about those two. But the last, Giants Reboot and Clerks 3, he obviously did these tours with the movies, and they had very limited releases. So it's just cool to see that this one was a little easier to get to and didn't have to like buy a ticket for anything or try to travel out of town or any shit like that. So
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I love the fact that he goes out and tours with this stuff,
Oh,
or
yeah.
then the fact that he started that concept with an evening with Kevin Smith, and he just come out and talk and doing the movie tour with it. It's pretty cool.
absolutely.
To your point, like with Red State and Tusk, those movies felt like they never got as much hype about him because I don't feel like he was talking about them as much. But I don't know if I was just overlooking his section of the internet at that point in time or what, because
Yeah, I think that's what I was doing.
it just had to be the case for me because I grew up with Clerks and seeing Clerks in junior high and like just falling in love with that movie, and then going from there, going down the Kevin Smith rabbit hole, and Mallrats was still pretty fresh then, so that was still pretty new, and following along everything from there, going seeing Dogma when it came out, and kind of shit. Chasing Amy we watched as well, and then Jersey Girl, saw that in theaters. Regardless of how you feel about that,
Well, then he did Cop Out
Mm-hmm.
and
He
Zack and
directed that.
Mary.
Yeah.
Yeah, he directed Cop Out, but he did not write it. He probably did rewrites and stuff, but it was also that I imagine Tracy Morgan did some improv, but
Yeah, I mean, I think
that movie's not as bad as people think it is. It's like not great or anything, but like if you want to go see Bruce Willis and Tracy Morgan fuck around for an hour and a half, not too bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's entertaining, right? It's not like the best Bruce Willis movie ever, but
Zack and Mary, solid movie.
Yeah, that's pretty damn funny to go and rewatch that one occasionally. the fact that it just had some different people outside the typical Kevin Smith realm was nice. I always like to see him add new people into his repertoire,
Yeah, it was cool. And
his
you had
inner
some,
circle.
I mean, Jason Mewes is still in that, and so is Jeff Anderson even. So some of those
Yeah,
people are still in there, but with like Seth Rogen and Craig Robertson. So
yeah. So with the 4:30 movie, right? It's got a great cast.
yeah,
I enjoyed the cast.
those
Couple
two
of the
those two kids that were his friends, I was looking them up, and they didn't have clickable names on Wikipedia, which is interesting. But I thought they did great jobs. The one kid, obviously, he reminded me of two people merged into one.
okay.
Uh, Skeet Ulrich and Johnny Depp, the young versions.
Oh, okay.
That's the vibes he
Yep.
gave me.
Yeah, for sure. That makes sense.
But I liked him. He could go places for sure. And the other kid too was funny and goofy and I think Austin Zischer's character was a kind of counterbalance in between those two characters.
Yeah, one, I thought they did a pretty good job of having a balance between each other and showing a group of friends, because I mean, even like when I look at my own friends, like, yeah, we all have a lot of stuff we overlap on, but everyone has their own interests. So, like, it felt like those were naturally like friends, even though they had their fight and everything in there, kind of made sense.
Yeah.
And then some good cameos in there, man. Like Method Man has his cameo, which is just so interesting.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think he had a cameo in Reboot, didn't he?
yeah, I think so. Yeah. And then we just got a quick couple of moments like Jason Lee showing up in there.
Jason Lee as the dad, which was hilarious, honestly. He
Yeah.
was like, what did he say? Like, do the what voice was it? I can't even remember.
Oh yeah, yeah. He's having him do some
The voice
cartoon
over the
character.
phone.
Yeah. Now the lady that played her mom that was on SNL, like she kind of annoys me, but like I didn't let her detract me from the movie. Like I still enjoyed it.
That plays her mother. Maya Rudolph?
No,
Was
not
she in
Maya
this? Not
Rudolph.
she wasn't in this. Are you talking about Kate McCucci? Because she was his mother, right? Wait, am I confusing their mothers now?
Yeah, Kate McCucci is Melody's mom in there.
Okay, Kate McCucci I like because she is the voice of Velma in a lot of stuff now.
Yeah.
So we love her. I'm trying to think of who the hell you're thinking of.
Rachel Dratch.
I guess I don't watch enough modern SNL to know who the fuck that is.
Yeah, she's just kind of that annoying character. She's just kind of silly. And it's not that I hate her, but she's always just kind of playing these same weird characters. So she's just kind of typecast. And she's probably way more talented than like we're shown because she's always just like just a total weirdo, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but for me it just kind of is annoying because I felt like she was supposed to be kind of serious in this role, but I just couldn't take her seriously.
Yeah.
And like even though Jason Lee kind of came there to counterbalance her, like he was fine. He seemed
Oh,
pretty nasty.
okay. Rachel Susan Dratch. Now I know who you're talking about.
Yep.
Okay, actually, I think she can be really funny, but she is definitely over the top and like goofy as fuck. Like
Mm-hmm.
if Adam Sandler had a pussy.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
But
I
I
mean,
mean,
I didn't love her in that role in here. She was the only one in there that just felt like, to me, she felt like she was putting on an SNL skit for her character instead of just fitting in with the rest of the cast. And that was my only takeaway. The only thing in there that I didn't really care for was her. And like, I think she's hilarious in some other shit, but yeah.
let's see who else we got. Justin Long was in there. And he's obviously in a ton of Kevin Smith stuff since what was the first thing he was in? Zack and Miri? Was anything before that?
No, Zack and Miri is where he got his intro there, and he's been working with them pretty frequently since then.
Yeah, he's in Tusk. I think he had a cameo on Reboot, I want to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did. He was the lawyer in that movie.
Yeah.
Then there's Diedrich Bader, who obviously was in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
Mm-hmm.
We love that guy. That guy's awesome in just about everything.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Just all the other cameos were pretty spot on, though. I like those.
Yeah, let's see. Sam Richardson is Major Murder. He's the wrestling character. That guy's pretty funny too. He had some interesting lines and stuff.
Yeah, I like how he kind of went back to that classic Kevin Smith. Like he kind of had that Stanley role in this movie, right? Basically, the Stanley Mallrats role in this movie is Sam Richardson
Yes.
is Major Murder. So,
And as we go forward, I'm only going to compare this movie to Mallrats more and more. This
mhm.
is the Mallrats 2 spiritual sequel. You know what I mean? Like, very
just as
interesting.
yeah, just as far as like the way it flows, just some of the character interactions between each other, just younger, which is good. I
Mhm.
mean, I think it was well written for them being in high school. Brian O'Halloran has his cameo at the very end, that mid credits sequence, or is that
Yeah,
post credits?
it was post credits during just the bloopers, but it seemed like it was just a cut scene.
Yeah.
Um, and then Jeff Anderson as well.
Yep.
Rosario Dawson.
And then Harley
Um,
Quinn had her moment in there, which is
yes.
hilarious. She's in that fake trailer, which I love that the fake trailers in this so much, just from being a huge fan of um,
Grindhouse.
Grindhouse. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I thought that was great because Grindhouse is so dark and brutal. Like these felt like they could have fit into Grindhouse itself. Like Sister Sugar Walls was on point, right? That felt like it was straight out of the Grindhouse trailers that Tarantino would have done or Rodriguez would have done, and I just
Yeah.
love that.
Yep. And Logic as Astro Blaster is interesting. Interesting choice.
Mm-hmm.
Jason Biggs even had a cameo. He was in Strike Back.
Yeah, he's a construction worker here.
So yeah, and then as far as main cast, Ken Jeong, which is his manager Mike. He is a little over the top too, but he's just doing his sort of over the top comedy shtick. He's kind of that's just the way he is. So
Yeah, he kind of falls in that same land as Rachel Dratch, just because he's always kind of doing the same character. Sometimes it's a little more layered than others. Like for the most part, I wasn't bothered by him too much throughout this movie, but there's definitely a few times where he's kind of silly. But I mean, when you're looking at like the movie theater manager as a villain, right? Especially if you put yourself in the mindset of a teenager, like, okay, that makes sense because that would be your villain there. Anyone that's going to try to stop you from sneaking into the rated R movies, kind of like on your list of people that suck.
yeah. The music was interesting.
Hmm.
There was a good needle drops. Obviously just sign of the time stuff, and then the actual score done by Bear McCreary, who's the guy who does like he did Walking Dead and does a bunch of big name stuff. So
Yeah, the music was good, and apparently they scored that. I noticed that was interesting that was scored overseas. Where did they say that was filmed? Like just recorded the score.
I don't know.
I'd have to look at the credits again, but pretty interesting.
Yeah. So what else you got?
I mean, if we just talk about the overall story, right? Just kind of going through it. I like the intro. The intro was very strong. It took you right into the 80s. Very much that flashback thing where, he's heating up food, he's calling into a restaurant, they're talking on the phone. All the set deck looks so great. And I wonder how much of that stuff was shit that Kevin still had from like being a kid. Like some of that felt like shit he probably went and got from his mom's house. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they were. It looked like they were shooting at his childhood house.
Okay.
I couldn't quite tell because I think it's been raised, but I know that they shot at it in Clerks 2. It's the house he picks up Jeff Anderson from.
Oh, okay.
So
So
if
I'm
that,
aware of that.
you'd have to look. Yeah, that's Kevin Smith's childhood home if you watch Clerks 2 again. So
Okay. Good. I
I'm
need to
pretty
check
sure it was
that
the
out.
same place, though. I couldn't tell.
Yeah, and that would make sense. I mean, it just felt like it was true vintage. It almost gave me, and I would say this in a good way, that 70s show vibes from the set deck, right? It just felt very natural, felt like it was really taking you back to that place in time.
Well, yeah, like I noticed they had some of those Return of the Jedi cups in the kitchen. Like
Yeah,
on
I
the
know you
dish
pointed
dish
that out
rack
when we
and
were
shit.
sitting there watching it, and we don't get to see the movies together as often as we used to, but it was definitely awesome to go and sit down next to you when we watched this. So I did get a kick out of that when you're like, "Oh, those are the Return of the Jedi cups," and I'm like, "Yep, that's pretty awesome."
Yeah,
Good
and
little touch. That
we
little
didn't even
TV set that yellow TV set they had in there, I think it was.
Yep.
That thing was gorgeous, man. You're like, oh, you'd just love to have that one around.
It was beautiful. It's nice to see this at the movie theater that we grew up going to. We lived in the neighborhood behind this theater growing up that we went to see this at.
Yeah, it very much had nostalgic vibes going to see it at that theater with you there and then seeing a movie about going to the movies. Like, we didn't lose the irony of that in the showing of this. I would say this movie felt like it was, when you have a coming of age story, sometimes they're a little bit sad. Clerks 3 is kind of a very depressing movie. It's hard to watch. The rewatch value there just isn't where Clerks or Clerks 2 is. And for this, I think the rewatchability is a lot higher than Clerks 3, but he's still kind of in this sentimental movie making stage where it's fascinating to see like where his mind's going with some of this.
Yeah. It got really fucking dark there with Clerks 3.
Mm-hmm.
And then now we're getting this, which is, I think, an improvement on Clerks 3. I did watch Clerks 3 again like a few weeks ago. And I was like, okay, I think I like this a little bit more the second time around.
I've watched it 3 times total since it came out. I saw it once at the Kevin event, and then when it came out on digital, I bought it, watched it once then, and then I watched it again maybe the beginning of the summer. It's kind of one of those movies like I can't watch in the midst of seasonal depression era, so I had to wait for like a summertime viewing to try to get it in. And there's definitely things I really like about it, but I felt like this captured the nostalgia better without being fucking piss poor sad the whole time, right? I felt like, okay, this is a good way to look back on these things, which is interesting that he's so reflective on his life in Clerks 3, yet then he goes back to an earlier point in his life that we've never really seen him cover in his material before.
Yeah,
so he took us back to a new era.
In his podcast he has before, I remember listening to these old podcast episodes. I guess it was just the Smodcast at the time because it was just him and Scott Mosier.
Okay.
You might be able to find these on YouTube or, thatkevinsmithclub.com.
Mm-hmm.
But either way, it was recordings, those tape recordings that he made as a kid.
Oh, shit. Okay.
So it was him and Scott listening to and reacting to them. And I've never heard Kevin Smith laugh and just cry at harder than listening to those. And it was so entertaining because he's a teenager and he's talking about this girl and he's talking about it's just like the fucking movie, except way worse, like more pretentious and cringe, and it's so fucking hilarious. So when I saw that in the movie, I was like, wow, that's awesome. He's putting that in there.
Well, it felt very true to life, right? It felt very much like this is lifted from there. He'd experienced it and he was able to kind of translate it in there with it teetering on being like autobiographical with just being loose enough to tell a story that fits that time, right? Because how many of those tapes does he have? Probably quite a few.
Yeah. I know, it's pretty wild. I've heard him talking about getting hand jobs to the Batman soundtrack. Like shit like that. Like if Smodcast was a crazy fucking podcast, I tell you. I know way too much about Kevin Smith. I mean, if you've read his books, you know way too much about him too, man.
Yeah.
Shares every possible detail. Like the first time he had sex with his wife and he had a cut on his penis and he still went and had unprotected sex with her and he said it was so painful because of the cut on his penis. And you're just like, Jesus Christ.
That's fucked up, man.
Yeah.
That's a trooper right there. You're like, hey, maybe we should hold off on this, but here we are.
Which I'm surprised that hasn't made it into a movie.
Not yet, But when you think about the overall movie story of Kevin Smith, it's fresh to see him do something kind of new, right? This isn't a territory we haven't seen him do in the movies yet. Him being a teenager, right? We've had teenage kind of characters sprinkled in throughout stuff, but it's usually like young adults or people just going through bullshit. And so I think this captured it well with a little more innocence than some of the shit that the older groups carry with, no death, none of that shit that was really can kind of weigh some of these other movies down. They're still enjoyable to watch, but when you think about this and then you think about Tusk or Red State, you're like, man, he really branched out there. And then I like seeing that he's doing new territory, and I'm just kind of curious what he's got up his sleeve next,
Amber Flack is in the chat. Says Yoshi. Yes, Yoshi is beautiful. He's on my lap right now. I'm not doing dirty things down here, everyone. I am just petting my pussy.
You are. Yes.
But yeah, thanks for joining us, Amber.
Yeah, thanks for checking the show out live.
So who else we got?
There's some damn funny shit in this movie though, like him getting kicked out of the theater for jerking off in the bathroom was fucking hilarious.
Oh, that was wild, and it was like a gnarly like drawing on the bathroom stall. It wasn't even like a good drawing. It was just like
but that's like that uncontrollable teenager hormones where you're like, this is fucking dumb, but I don't know why. But I think many people have probably been in a spot where you're like, that's just stupid things.
You got something that you want to tell me about the AMC bathroom?
No, I sure don't.
All right. I was wondering why you left halfway through and the popcorn was saltier afterwards.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I didn't say I enjoyed it.
Oh,
I just noticed.
The old tub of corn trick.
I was like, huh, their popcorn butter's a little thick today.
It's pretty twisted, son.
It is. It's very gross. No, but
so the jokes they had around that too, though, like they kick him out and they're like, that's only fun for one person. And you see that and you're just like, wait, is that a dig at Pee-wee? And then you realize like that happened in the 90s for Pee-wee, so this predated that. You're like, okay, but there's still some jokes in there, like the Michael Jackson joke they threw in there. No, it was the Bill Cosby joke. Sorry.
Oh yeah.
You're like, oh, this is I love that there's like modern jokes, like shit that would have been kosher back then and like today are like, oh man, like that was a nice touch. I enjoyed that quite a bit.
Yeah. I like that there was a reference to dental school in there.
Mm-hmm.
It actually got brought up several times, but that's the movie where she's like, in Clerks, she's like, that's the tape I want to write right there, dental school. He's like, you're kidding? That's the tape I came for.
Yeah. I mean, full circle, right? It's just the nuanced shit. If you're into Kevin Smith stuff, the fact that they kind of bring that full circle and talk about it, and that lines up with the VHS rental of Dental School. So that's beautiful.
Yeah, I need to get a VHS copy of Dental School now. That'd be sick. Like just.
I mean, why wouldn't you have it? Just to have it on there.
Put it next to Navy SEALs and Clerks.
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much. So, yeah, we talked about the fake movie trailers. Let's talk about sort of the relationship aspect of this movie. It's there are some dirty jokes, but this never occurred to me. But like, all of a sudden, I feel really weird watching movies about high school kids and like them having sex and shit. And I'm like, wait a minute. I mean, like, I know I had sex in high school, but like, you know what I mean? Like, American Pie was a thing. Holy shit, that's fucking weird.
Well, yeah, and the thing is, like, this cast looks closer to high school age than the American Pie cast did, right? The American Pie cast is all like, bro, all college age or early 20s. And you're like, okay.
Austin Zacher's got to be like 22 to 25 by now. He's at least mid 20s, but yeah, he does look younger.
Yeah. And so I think that helps carry that story. But I think that uncomfortableness there is just the fact that you're just acknowledging that you're not in that era of your life anymore. So, because when you think about it, like that is the most awkward phase for everyone, and it's bad decisions left and right. And everyone's got strong opinions about shit that are trying to influence you. So those types of movies just aren't aimed at us. Now, this particular one was because it's kind of this balance. It's kind of a coming of age story from a director who kind of understood that message. Whereas, like another comedy movie that they could make for pretty cheap, directed to teens nowadays, would be way raunchier in other aspects, but different style of humor.
Well, right? There's a scene that reminded me again of Mallrats in this. Like in Mallrats, they have sex in the elevator.
Mm-hmm.
What does the elevator do? It goes up and down. Well, in this one, there's a scene where Austin's character, Brian David, comes back from a phone call, I think, with his mom.
Mm-hmm.
And he sits down in the theater next to his friend, who just looks like he's like sweating and shit, and he's like breathing heavy. And it's like it's framed kind of weird. And I'm thinking this guy's getting jerked off right now. Then they pull the frame back, and no, he's full on having penetrative sex in the back of this theater.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It was
That
wild.
that was pretty wild, and, like, that was the older college girl that came back into town.
Yeah.
The other interesting piece to it was, like, they're giving Austin's character all this shit about him, like, dating this younger girl, and, like, she's just a year younger than him. Like, was that a thing when you were in high school? Like, were people really flipping out about 1 year younger or shit like that?
I don't know. Not that I know of. I mean, some people will always give people shit for that, I feel like, but yeah, that's nothing in high school. 1 year anyway.
Yeah, that's kinda what I was thinking. Like, it didn't seem like that big of a deal, but, maybe back in the '80s or when Kevin did it, like, his friends really were giving him a bunch of shit about it, but I did find it pretty funny that, they're playing it out to that sort of story that she's shorter than he was, and that's why he liked her because, he felt adequate or, better about himself there. So, like, if you've heard the old Kevin Smith tapes, is that anything he talked about on those old podcasts?
Well, in those tapes, it's him talking to himself. So sometimes he's riding his bike literally while talking.
Okay.
Sometimes he's talking about movies or work, but it is a lot about girls and like the complications that he's having with them.
Yeah.
And some of it's about movies and writing and stuff. And he's super fucking pretentious. And that's why it's just so fucking hilarious. He thinks he's fucking brilliant.
Yeah. Well, I mean, who fucking doesn't at that age, right?
Yeah.
I'm glad I don't have tapes of that bullshit, let me tell you
Oh,
that.
thank God.
But that is fascinating, though, like, as a writer, the way to take notes and to keep tabs on things, and I like how he kind of explained it. I heard this is what writers do, and, because how many people pick up a habit from their idols or something like that and then kinda run with it to try to get better at their craft, so kind of a
Yeah.
good real life scenario there.
Checks out. Yeah. That's I like that. How about the ending? So eventually they get in the movie and they get kind of caught and found out by her mom. They leave and then there's in typical Kevin Smith fashion, long dialogue with just two characters hanging out,
Mhm.
and it works.
Yeah.
This movie is very short though, and I gotta say I did feel like, oh shit, it's over already, which is probably a good thing, because it
Well,
doesn't overstay its welcome or anything.
I think that's the number one item going for it is it doesn't run too long, right? A runtime on a movie like this where it's a simple coming of age story, meaning that basically takes place over 1 day, so how much are you gonna try to cram into it, right? We're not cramming in several days, so we don't need long extended scenes, things like that. Now, the ending felt a little anticlimactic, but if it's based on, like, kinda real life, that's probably more accurate than a lot of movies are with how it actually went down, right? It was just like, hey, they got out of there and probably had a better time talking like, they imply or say they did in the movie. That's probably real. That probably
Yeah,
really happened that way. And that's classic Kevin Smith as far as having like profound moments between two people or, at least one person giving like a classic monologue to really kind of sum things up or, kind of sell you on a story or concept within there. And I think it plays out pretty well. I liked it. I didn't hate it at all. I liked the scenery they had on it. The only thing that and I wouldn't even say this irritated me, but they go to the 7:30 movie, so they get kicked out of the 7:30 movie, and it's bright daylight, and I'm like, even in the summertime, like it's light out pretty late, but it just seemed like 7:30 to 8 o'clock at night when they're out there. It felt like it should be a little dimmer, and that's just a minor thing for me that I
that's
noticed
funny because dude, like in the
experiencing that
summer
for me.
here, it's like sometimes bright outs and till it's like literally not dark till 9:30. Like, so I
Yeah,
feel
but and
like it
I
worked.
and I don't know if it was just like where the sun was at in the horizon or in the shots or anything like that. It just felt like I didn't have a problem with it being daylight, but it just felt like the timing of day didn't feel like they're actually shooting at the time of the day they're portraying. And to me, in a daylight scenario like that, that was noticeable to me. Like when you're kind of starting to push towards dusk, the position of the sun would be a little different. So shadows would be falling different and things like that. And that just felt off to me a little bit. And that's fucking nitpicking, right? That's just one thing that I experienced personally in the movie theater. So, other than that, though, I had fun with it. I thought, what was her name?
Melody.
Melody. Yeah, I thought. So that's Sienna that plays that Melody, and I thought she did a good job. I don't know if I've seen her in anything else.
Let me see.
Oh, I did see. Yeah, she was in the Resident Evil series on Netflix. Okay.
She was in F9.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Gotcha.
Young Mia Toretto. That's where I would have
Okay.
seen him.
So she looked very familiar to me during this, and I did watch that Resident Evil series, which was a TV series.
Yeah.
Keeping it simple, right? Not to get sidetracked. So I thought she looked familiar in there, but she's only 20. So she definitely has that right age range for that. Her character felt like innocent, and I think she had pretty good presence with Brian and Melody's scenes together worked out pretty well. I mean, it felt pretty genuine, and I think they did a good job working together.
Yep.
And that ending, though, I mean, him applying to the quick stop is kind of like that moment for anyone that wasn't sure if this was a Kevin Smith movie about Kevin Smith. Like, that's the oh, by the way, in case you didn't understand it, this is really what this is.
Okay.
Right?
Without clicking on anything, I want you to guess how old Austin Zager is.
24?
No, I'll give you a hint. He's as old as Cameron was during the filming of Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Jesus. I see he's 29 now. I mean, I gave you a guess, so.
Yeah.
When did Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark come out?
2019, I want to say. 2020,
Okay.
maybe.
So he was in his mid-20s by then? So that was 5 years ago, so he'd have been 24 for that. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, he keeps a baby face, so, I mean, that makes it better than some others, but...
Harley Quinn Smith is 25.
Oh. What?
I'm looking at Kevin Smith's shit, and did you know Kilroy Here was actually released, apparently?
Really?
It says the film was released as 5,555 exclusive non-refundable tokens on a fucking NFT minting platform. The first feature film to be released as an NFT. God damn it.
Oh, that's fucking dumb. I'm so glad the NFT craze is pretty much done.
Yeah, you get made fun of if you're into crypto shit now. Fuck off.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't give a shit about cryptocurrencies, but like crypto collecting was just fucking dumb.
Yeah.
I was like, really? I mean, anyone can copy and replicate files. So, okay, that's not how computers work. It's all ones and zeros. So let's figure it out, kids.
Yeah, super weird. I don't know. They're like, but the blockchain, you know?
Yeah. Gold jacket, green jacket. Who gives a shit?
Overall,
what would you rate this, I guess, out of 10? We're kind of at that point with it, right?
I like it. And I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. Solid.
Yeah. The rewatchability is higher than some of his other stuff.
I definitely will probably try to buy this. I think it's actually already up for pre-order, the physical version. So
okay, yeah. Yeah, this is one I'd like to have in there. Just as someone that snuck into rated R movies a lot and did a fair amount of movie hopping, it's like right in there with it, and it's a pretty good story overall. So it's pretty relatable. It's pretty enjoyable.
I think this movie has a little bit. I mean, it's not as relationship dramatic as like Chasing Amy.
No.
And it's, not as dark as Clerks, but it definitely reminds me of like his first 10 years as a filmmaker, return to that.
It's kind of a return to that, but also being a little more gentle than he would have been, right? There is some pretty crude humor in there, but at the same time, it's very thoughtful in ways that he wasn't when he did Mallrats. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but at all, right? Mallrats is great. I love Mallrats for what it is.
Well, his
And
intense.
I like
Go
this
ahead.
because it's different, right? I like how he's just willing to be something different but familiar.
His intense dialogue is a lot different too. You know,
Mhm.
it's not done the same way with everybody word vomiting the way they do in earlier Kevin Smith movies, which was a thing we liked about it because, you know. But when you think about it, all the lines said by Brody and all the lines said by fucking Jeff Anderson,
Mhm.
you know, they're pretty much the same type of shit.
Well,
You
yeah,
know what I mean?
his leading man character was kind of like, there's always been the two people, so they can have this dialogue bounce back and
It's
forth.
John Candy and Steve Martin.
Yeah, basically, right? It's a derivative of that. So, and that's not bad. Like you said, we love those movies for that reason. I would say I would give this a 7.5 out of 10. Not quite an 8. There's a few things that could have been a little bit better, but I'm not gonna be like, oh, it's not watchable. It's very rewatchable. I liked it a lot. It's just not perfect. So, but it's good. It's fun.
Yeah.
If you've ever snuck into a rated R movie or went movie hopping or you grew up through the 90s, right? Now, I would say this movie isn't as relatable to, somebody maybe born after 95 or after 2000, just because that's not really the demographic for it. But if they watched it, they'd probably relate to some aspects of it, probably sneaking into the occasional rated R movie, things like that. And just that teenage lifestyle, but it's so different because, with cell phone technology, social media, all that stuff there, the considerations are different. But I think the story is pretty relatable for the average person. But to really get the most from this movie, you need to have grown up kind of through the 80s or 90s to really take it in for what it was.
Yeah, I can see that.
I mean, I think someone that maybe, like 20 to 25 right now would say, yeah, this movie might be a 6, maybe a 5, just because it's not as relatable to it. Like, this movie is a lot more enjoyable for me because I experience those things on a frequent basis.
Right. Um, I've seen a lot of people talking about this sort of culture recently and how, kids don't remember VHS and video stores, and then kids born in, the year 2000 piping in, well, I remember video stores. Yeah, but like you remember the end of video stores, not actually their prime when people actually visited them. You know what I mean? Like it's different. It's a different understanding still.
Yes, and it's
I'm not trying to gatekeep, remember
no,
being
and
nostalgic for VHS because hey, but
I get what you're saying there, though, because I graduated in 2002 high school, and so coming from that, Blockbuster was still going pretty strong then. Like my first couple apartments up through 2004, I still rented a lot of fucking movies. It was cheaper than for me than getting cable or whatever else, or I'd buy like the cheap movies at Walmart. So I had a lot of bargain bin movies. And, you know, between 2005 and 2010, VHS really started to die off due to Netflix. And the art of the video store was pretty much on life support by then.
yeah. And Redbox just now finally called it quits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, with physical media having less prevalence at the moment, right? I think we're seeing it's
Well,
interesting.
physical media in itself is actually some parts of it are better than they ever have been because we're getting
Yes,
such crazy boutique and awesome releases, but it's dying off as a mainstream thing. It's becoming a fucking nerd culture now. So I don't
it
have a
is.
problem with that. It's just I hope it's still affordable and easily accessible for people like us.
Yes, that's the main concern with it right now is that some of these boutique releases, they're releasing them in such small quantities in order to turn a profit by the time you pay for the licensing and everything else.
Yeah.
You got to jack the price up on those. And then, hell, even when you look at a new release movie right now where you can go buy a DVD, a Blu ray, or a 4K, right? You look at the price difference and you're like, physical media, if you have the player, the actual media to print and to create and to make and to box and sell is damn near identical, right? It's the same concept for a DVD all the way through a 4K Blu ray. It's just the amount of information on there they're jacking up the price for, which, whatever, I get it. But
Yeah. For example, the Halloween movies, franchise. I own every one of them except the Rob Zombie ones, but it's a mixed bag, and they're all DVD. Like literally, I have Halloween Ends on DVD, but I don't own a higher def version. Don't really care to. I might buy if they ever release another Halloween box set. I'd be interested, but you know what I mean. They don't do as many box sets now. They'll put I think almost all the Halloween movies, or at least they started putting them out on 4K. There's a lot of them on 4K.
Yeah.
But
the only one on 4K I have is Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, which is my fucking personal favorite besides the original. But to me, start to finish, the pacing on Halloween 3 is better than the original. The original Halloween has some pacing issues. I said it. If you don't like it, fucking blow me up in the comments. But I love Halloween 3 Season of the Witch.
Yeah, same.
Fucking glorious movie. Love it, love it, love it. But yeah, physical media is such an interesting place right now. Shit, even the digital releases, right? So, we just had a Friday the 13th. This movie released on Friday the 13th, even though we saw it on Thursday the 12th. In Friday the 13th, I watched the original. I got the digital set of the first 8 movies, I think it is. And then there's another release that has Jason Goes to Hell and Jason 10, and then Freddy versus Jason. It's like its own 3-pack, and you're just like,
I'm just real quick. Jason 10 is Jason X.
Yeah, whatever. Who gives a shit?
I'm just saying, all the nerds are going, "Ooh, you didn't say Jason X."
Well, that's flaming garbage. I don't need fucking Jason in space, so that's like Leprechaun in space.
Those are both glorious. Don't talk trash. They're amazing.
I mean, Leprechaun in space is so bad it's good, right? That's where that lands. Jason X, if you want to call it that, is well, it's a movie. I'll leave it at that, and that's my opinion on it. And yours may differ, and that's beautiful. You're entitled to that.
I have the physical releases of those versions. The first 8 movie collection. I actually did a Friday the 13th physical media history video on my channel on Friday the 13th. I released and talked about all those. The CED. There's no Friday the 13th on UMD besides Freddy versus Jason, if you count that, which I do.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I think we're in an interesting spot with the physical media, right? We're seeing some VHS get released again because it's so popular, which I love. And then we're seeing some really cool collectible sets out there. I would love to see like a Kevin Smith set, but he's worked with so many studios and everything like that. I just don't see that happening anytime soon. The licensing to that would be a pain in the ass. So,
I mean, we haven't even got a singular release of SLC Punk on 4K, and it was never on Blu-ray. But it's part of a box set that you can get that costs over $100 from the fucking company, and it's like, fucking suck a dick, dude. Just release the disc.
Yeah, some of that's really annoying because the whole reason physical media will always live, and anyone that wants to argue about it needs to have their head checked, because Disney Plus alone taught you that you cannot trust that, because Disney's like, oh yeah, this will be for all the Disney stuff. And they put stuff on there and they pulled it off all the time. They've released brand new movies. What was that? There was a McKenna Grace movie that was like on there for a month and literally got taken down because they don't think they wanted to pay the actors royalties for having it up there. They're like, this didn't do anything. And you're like, well, it didn't have a theatrical release. It was released direct to streaming. And then you took it down within a month. Like, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, there's like Freaks and Geeks is not available on streaming or anything. That was made by what, ABC or somebody?
Mm-hmm.
Like now, there's just shit that's not out there. It's like,
and you can go buy the digital copies of those, but there's a decent amount of, some of the studios are like holdouts. So like if you buy certain things, like I'll throw the example for my collection, Scrooged, right? Scrooge is an MGM film, and so their licensing and stuff isn't cross compatible for the digital copies through like the Movies Anywhere platform or what they used to call Vudu, the Fandango at Home, whatever they're calling it now, and some of the other digital streaming options, right? So if you bought it, like when I want to watch Scrooge, I have to go into my Apple TV app and watch that. Or other stuff, I can just go into my Movies Anywhere or Vudu. It doesn't matter what app I'm in, I can just stream it there because the licensing's all there. Yeah. And that stuff is really annoying as well. But even when you buy the digital, like I think we saw on, was that on the PlayStation Network that somebody removed their entire catalog of even like pre-existing paid-for items on there.
Yes, like on I think it was PS3, maybe
Yeah,
PS4. That stuff's starting to go bye-bye.
yeah, and
Like
it was like a TV series. Like, so somebody bought it through the Sony store, and they're just like, now we're pulling it on there, and it
I'm
was
pretty
just
sure
like,
iTunes is the same way. I'm pretty sure because I had bought movies. I bought like episodes of American Dad and Aqua Teen Hunger Force on iTunes back in like 2008.
so that's iTunes stuff is weird because like I still have some of that stuff. I have a couple movies I bought that way before they rolled out the current Apple ecosystem, right? So it might get loud as a movie I own. And same thing with Take Me Home Tonight. I own those as a digital copy that I can play back through iTunes, but it's not part of my digital library catalog like everything else is. It's
Yeah, this is why
it's
digital libraries piss me off because they're going to continue to change and update and evolve, and you can never just rely on one thing and have that one thing and be good with it.
well, and the problem with that too is since you don't have the asset necessarily downloaded, if whoever is hosting that on their server decides to change the movie for one reason or another, they could add special features, they could take those away. You can do all that, and then you're just out of luck.
Yeah, people
So,
noticed on Disney Plus recently, Lilo and Stitch has been altered.
mhm.
There's a scene where she climbed into a washer or a dryer, and they turned it into a fucking cupboard.
Oh yeah, because they didn't want like children getting hurt, right? Because there's real life deaths of that, and so they're like, oh, let's not give the kids the idea. Like
It's
now for a
whatever,
safety thing
but
for kids, like right, but the integrity of that is like you were okay with this at the time, but when you look at Lilo and Stitch, they also reanimated the whole ending sequence because right after 9/11, they didn't want to have the airplane that they're on, so they turned it into a spaceship. So,
yeah.
like, they already did that during the regular production before they released it. So,
9/11 changed a lot of movies. It changed Donnie Darko, some
mhm,
of the marketing towards that because they had some of the writing looked about like Arabic.
mhm.
Uh, and that movie came out in 2001 and also involved a plane crash.
Yeah. No, there's tons of shit that was changed due to that, but the fact that someone can do that to your digital library that you own and just change shit on the background or remove special features, you're like, "No, that's why you want your physical media. That's
Yeah.
why you need to have it."
Yep.
And, I get the fact that a ton of people have a Plex server, but the only way you get a Plex server is by people ripping their fucking physical media and saving it on there, right? So, like, if you're gonna go through all that trouble,
That sounds fun.
yeah. Yeah, could you imagine how long it would take to do
Not.
a digital backup of every DVD you own? That's an investment, son. That's some time. So,
Yeah,
it's easier
yeah,
just to go throw the disc in.
yeah. Do you know people who have disk drives still? I do, but do you know other people that do? Do you know
Uh,
people that have computers at home that don't do podcasts or art?
no, they don't.
That's not a thing anymore because people all have it on their fucking phone.
There's legit a whole generation of people going in the workforce that have never used regular computer.
They do, yeah, exactly.
And then they're gonna get issued like a fucking Windows 11 or a Windows 10 laptop at work, and they're like, "What the fuck do I do with this?"
Yeah, it's
Crazy
crazy.
times, man. But yeah, to your point, I still have a DVD drive and burner, and I bought that when I got my first MacBook Pro that didn't have a drive connected to it. I was like, "Well, I need to get one of these and back it up," and I don't use it all the time, but when I
Yeah,
need it, I have it.
yeah. I have one as well. It's just a USB plugs into my laptop because neither of mine have disk drives. So
Yeah, and that was the primary driving force for me wanting to get the PS5, in addition to being able to play some modern games was the 4K Blu-ray player to me was like, okay, so I can go buy one of these for a few $100s, but for a little bit more,
and they
I can get
announced
one.
the PS5 Pro without a disk drive.
Yeah,
$700 fucking dollar unit with no disk drive. You have to pay extra for a disk drive for it.
yeah, it's an
Suck
additional
a
$80.
fucking dick.
$80 extra for the drive, right? And
Mm.
again, the components for that are super cheap. Just the color of the lasers change depending on the layer complexity of the disc itself. Like, really?
The fact that it does that extra $80, does that play 4K movies and everything too? Or
Don't
just
know.
PS5 games?
I
Because
haven't
if
even
you know what I mean?
I haven't even looked into it. And the upgraded specs weren't even enough to charge $200 extra for it. You know, it was like, oh, you get some better graphical performance. And you're like, all right, well, anyone that already really wanted graphical performance is probably already on a PC setup at home anyway. Oh, interesting shit. But yeah, keep your physical media collections going. Go out and buy physical media. Get online and buy it. Buy it at stores. Demand that stores carry it, because that's one thing that really is annoying, is the fact that there's certain places that are only carrying it around the holiday season as like easy throw in the cart gifts for people. Right? Target will carry more movies around the holidays.
Target's small section's getting smaller and smaller by the day, dude. Like they have a new release section. They have like a small little fucking end cap at the end of the vinyl aisle. Like,
yep, which is crazy because they'll have like a handful of CDs and some vinyl, which
they have a fuck ton of vinyl always, and Walmart now.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole, I would say, one row of it's not a fuck ton, but it's a.
For Walmart, it is. It's more. They have more vinyls at Target than DVDs, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
At Walmart, maybe not. I think they still have more DVDs, but
now if you're at a super Target, I think they carry just a slightly larger physical media collection on the Blu-rays and DVDs. But if you go to a regular Target, some of those don't even have hardly anything.
And Best Buy is done.
Yeah, they stopped doing physical media. What was that, last year?
Yeah, I think this year. Well, I don't know for sure, but Barnes and Noble is carrying plenty. I went in there the other day. They have a whole Criterion collection. They have 4Ks. They have DVDs still. They got Blu-rays. I think I'm going to be hitting them up for just browsing at least.
But you got to go to one of the good ones, right?
Yeah.
You got to go to a full store. Because if they don't carry the magazines, I don't think they carry the physical media movie collections either. So another interesting place to be. It's like, where are we at with this?
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll pick up the 4:30 movie on Blu-ray when it comes out. But there's certain movies like I don't need anything higher than Blu-ray quality on that. You know, like I don't need that 4K because there's no effects or anything. It's not like a summer blockbuster film, right? You know, pretty good quality is good enough quality for me. But that's where we're at, man. You got any final thoughts here before we wrap this shit up?
That is what Yoshi's butthole looks like.
Well, wink the old brown eye. But yeah, we'll be back. There's plenty of new movies coming out for this Halloween season, so I'm ready for it. I'm excited for it, man. Can you believe that we're damn near to October already?
Yeah, it's crazy.
We're on the downward slide of September.
Come on, Yosh. All right.
All right. Well, that's Yoshi. That's Alec. I'm Justin. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe and like if you haven't already. Throw some comments in there. Let us know what you thought. Are we wrong? Are we right? Have you seen this? Are you going to skip it? We'd like to hear what you have to say. You going to play the outro music, Alec? Or you?
It looked like you were frozen.
Are you going to sit there and pet the kitty? All right. Well.